Welcome to the Will Ventures podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Brian Riley.
And I'm Aaron Miller. And today we're going to talk with Jordy Leiser, the co-founder and CEO of Jump.
We're going to be talking about the sports industry, the ticketing industry, and what Jump is doing to disrupt the space.
So let's jump in.
We'll really appreciate you carving out time for this, especially when you're so busy.
Of course, yeah.
And been thinking about you recently. I'm always thinking about you, but recently, with the holidays in New York, I'm hosting friends and family for game or plays or whatever. And I'm getting hammered with ticketing fees left and right, which is always reminding me, one, this industry is super broken. And two, really grateful to be invested in Jump, which we're going to get to in a second. But before that, I kind of want to lay out your career path because you're an accomplished entrepreneur. And I want to give people that context. So you spent 2 years at JP Morgan. Then you decide, I want to take my own swing. And so you partner up with your college roommate to launch Stella Connect, which goes on to become, a leading enterprise business. You rally a bunch of venture capital. You lead that business to a successful acquisition. Amazing. You take a step back and you start to think, okay, what's next? And then fast forward, you co-found a business with Marc and Alex Rodriguez, two very prominent sports and entertainment executives. So walk us through how that relationship came about. What were the early conversations like? Walk us through that.
Sure. Well, Marc was not a sports and entertainment executive when I met him.
Right.
He was starting this little e-commerce business called diapers.com, in Montclair, New Jersey. And so we both went to the same college, just 10 years apart roughly, Bucknell University. And so Marc and I just became fast friends, and he just became kind of a big brother, kind of mentor for me in business. And so throughout my entire journey of Stella Connect and then his, wildly successful career in diapers.com and then jet.com, and he sold those two companies to Amazon and Walmart respectively, his career blew up. And then we were always just, catching up once a month. And so we just had a great relationship. He was always a customer of mine in my business. And so as he was rolling off his time at Walmart and we had been acquired, I was getting antsy. He was doing 100 things. And so then he had been introduced to Alex to buy the Mets, or to join the group to buy the Mets, which obviously they didn't get. But then they became fast friends. And so they started working on all kinds of different ideas and, harebrained thoughts about what they could do together, always with an eye toward maybe someday they'll buy a team. And so that was sort of Marc's first kind of toe in the water about this industry. And so one day I just called Marc and I wanted to pitch him an idea that I had because, like I said, I was getting antsy. And we hadn't caught up in a couple months, and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And I think it's huge. I still think that idea is like the great white whale for me.
That'll be the third act.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't actually want that. I don't want to do that business because I want this to be my last job that I ever do. But anyway, I just called him to pitch him an idea, and 5 minutes in, just entrepreneurs riffing, and 5 minutes in, he's like, dude, hold on. He's like, that sounds great, but a nightmare and way too complicated, way too big, or whatever he said. And he's like, what do you know about the fan experience and ticketing? And I was like, I don't know anything.
Right.
I'm a sports fan and I love going to events, but I know people don't like Ticketmaster. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's about all I know. And he said, oh yeah, well, Alex and I, we were trying to buy the Mets and I was thinking about buying another team, and the whole system, the whole stack is just a mess. It's horrible. It's awful. If we buy a team, I think there's these ideas, and I wrote up these patents.
Right.
I was like, you wrote up, patents? That's crazy. And he's like, yeah, and I have this whole idea. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, send me, the deck or whatever business you're thinking. And he's like, I just did. That's the deck. I just told you, I want to dynamic ticketing. You move seats during the game. You can upgrade and jump up to better seats. You can oversell the venue, all this stuff. And I was like, that's the idea. That's the whole business. You can't do that.
Right.
You can't just drop that consumer experience into these places.
Yeah.
And so then I started thinking oh, this is actually an enterprise business, but you need before the event, you need during the event, you need after the event. And it just became this whole conversation about what's the platform at the center of a professional sports team that orchestrates the entire fan experience, not just ticketing.
Right.
And And so that was sort of the beginning of like riffing on this idea. And they didn't have a team in mind yet. They weren't going to buy a team at that point. And we just started riffing. And she's like, oh, you got to talk to Alex. I was like, oh, I'd love to meet Alex. It'd be amazing. And so then the three of us started talking and just like, wow, this would be big. Like, what if we could do this? And then it was like, time out. Like, we got nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. And so we just sat on pause for a minute. And then a few weeks later, I got a text from Marc that he said they're likely to buy the Timberwolves.
Wow. By the way, that is unbelievable. Like for him to not only be in the process of thinking, I want to buy a team, but then to also think, wait, there's all these other business opportunities I could like spin up to take advantage of this opportunity around the team. Like that is such a rare trait that only someone like him possesses.
Yeah, but put yourself in the shoes of like a lifelong entrepreneur who's been building
You're just looking for pain points.
Customer experience. Like in his mind, whether it's diapers or Jet or Wonder, it's all about the customer experience and like pushing the boundary of the customer experience. And then if you're gonna spend $1 billion or $2 billion to buy a team and have no control over the customer experience, like that feels to him, that would feel like insane. Totally constrained.
Right, it's backwards.
And so those things were completely linked in his mind. Like he would only do this if he could do something like that. And then, but at the end of the day, I told him, I was like, do you know anything about enterprise software?
Right.
No. Okay, perfect. So, and then he's like, okay, you run the company. Alex and I will help you. And they've been just unbelievable.
So what was the moment where you realized you guys could actually do this? Because I think a lot of people realize Ticketmaster is a problem. The ticket industry is broken, but it's easier said than done to go disrupt this thing. What was the spark to say, we can actually go do this? Was it the Timberwolves deal?
Well, we were never going to try to do this business without a team to try it with. And as the great irony unfolded throughout this whole thing, we didn't actually have the Timberwolves to launch with because of the ownership dispute that ensued. And so we ended up launching the platform with an NWSL club and Steve Malik and the North Carolina Courage. And so, of course, that became kind of the warm-up to the Timberwolves, and we still need it and are grateful that we have the Timberwolves at the NBA scale to prove this out. But the question about when was there a moment that it was like we were going to actually do this? We didn't really want to build a ticketing company, actually. I mean, I still don't want to build a ticketing company. We didn't even want to build the ticketing software.
Right.
It is an enormous effort to build Ticketmaster was built in the 70s, and like the core systems that it's built on are the same systems from the 70s. SeatGeek, which is the other scaled platform in professional sports entertainment, they didn't build it either, or they didn't build it at all. They acquired an Israeli company called TopTix 20 years ago. That company was started more than 20 years ago. So we actually tried to go out to those companies, both of them, and talk about could we achieve the vision that we had, which was to create this unbelievably personalized fan experience, an elevated fan experience, and take in the real-time data and pipelines that then could orchestrate what we had in our vision. So it was about achieving some end of a great fan experience, and we didn't really care what the means were, and we preferred not to spend years building a ticketing system.
It was sort of like path of least resistance. What's the easiest way to get this launched? You went and talked to those groups. And by the way, we can cut this. But what were those conversations like?
So, that we our first hire in the company after the founding team, and so put together a founding team, which was a lot of my executives from Stella. Yeah, was the former head of engineering on the B2B side at Ticketmaster. And so we had relationships to get into Ticketmaster to talk to them, but it was pretty clear pretty fast that like they don't have the kind of pipelines and real-time data flows that you would need to do what we wanted to do. Right. So that was just kind of a non-option from the beginning, let alone their willingness to want to do something like that we knew wasn't there. We knew the founders of SeatGeek from our prior business, and they were a client of ours and a great client. And we actually loved working with them, and I deeply respect that group, and they're very smart. And so we spoke with them early on about, hey, maybe we could, kind of build some cool things together and embed some things into what you guys are doing. And, it became pretty clear pretty quick that, the dynamics of this industry are not like normal enterprise software where there's just like integrations and collaboration. And so we said, okay, well, there's really only one way to achieve the vision. And it's like, I guess we have to build like the whole rocket,
Right.
you know? And that's going to take us years. We're going to have to raise a ton of money.
Yeah.
We're going to have to hire this huge team, which, you know, it's not huge, but we have a small and mighty team of about 55 people. And so there was kind of this moment where it was like, at first we were going to maybe build modules or sort of kind of start small.
Right.
And then I remember, having a conversation with Marc and Alex one day. I was like, we have to build the whole thing.
Well, because also I'm sure you were thinking, I mean, there's a lot of point solutions that work with venues today. And I'm sure you as an entrepreneur and Marc and the whole team, like you look around and you go, okay, if we build another point solution, we're not going to be able to get a big enough piece of the pie. Like we got to know the whole thing.
And I learned that
the rest of the infrastructure is not there.
Totally. I learned that from our last business at Stella. Like we were a point solution.
Right.
And we ended up turning it into a 9-figure exit, which was great. But at the end of the day, we built something that integrated into, you know, if you want to use sort of, you know, the body as a metaphor, like the torso, like we were a limb or we were a piece of, but we had to integrate into something else always, which was a CRM or one of the main platforms for our clients. We want to be that platform.
Right.
And then in today's world, there's this compounding effect of like a compound software, compound company, where the underlying data set, the value of having an underlying data set that's all together and seamless and coherent for the benefits that come with AI is just, that's everything now.
Right.
And so the idea that you could have your mobile experience, your digital and your web experience, your ticketing experience, your resale experience, your group sales, like all of these things, F&B and merch and everything you touch and click and tap, all in one data set is the true unlock for all the workflows on the B2B side and all the personalization on the consumer side. And so as it turns out, I mean, the ChatGPT moment and all the LLMs weren't here when we started the company and made that decision, but it turned out to be, you know, the right decision for what was coming, which is basically the central platform that then everything else can integrate into.
Right.
So we're going to talk about this full platform, the full rocket that you're building. But first, we want to take a step back and understand the problem that you guys were attacking in the ticketing industry. And I think it's on two sides. There's the fan side and then the team or IP holder side. On the fan side, everyone kind of understands it. You go to Ticketmaster, you try to buy a ticket for $100. Before you know it, with fees, you're paying $200. And you're like, where'd this come from? Then there's the pre-sales. The other week, I tried to go to a Fred Again concert in New York, sat in that queue for 2 hours, and then it says, sorry, no tickets left. It was probably bots. And then I do this thing where I wait like 10 minutes before I get to every venue to try to download my ticket and then sit outside the arena where there's no internet, and then I'm screwed. And so like every part of the fan experience, it feels like it's kind of broken. And you know you're always going through Ticketmaster. And then on the sports, the IP holder, the venue side, there are problems too. So could you lay out what are the problems in the ticketing industry?
Sure. The biggest problem stems from the misalignment in the business model. So you talked about the ticketing fees. And in this, we'll kind of narrow the conversation to the sports industry or running a sports team, let's say. So the primary revenue streams for a professional sports team are their fixed customers, their fixed base of fixed plans, full season memberships, half season, fixed plans, even groups, or, you know, it's not selling the one-off ticket to the group of friends that are going to the game tonight. That's a very small percentage of their business. It's like maybe 10% of their ticketing revenue. Okay, 10, 15, 20%. Yet, that is the only part of the business that funds or pays fees to the ticketing company. So you have this unbelievable misalignment of the things that matter most to the team are the things that the ticketing companies don't get paid on. And the thing that matters least to the team are the only things that they get paid on. And oh, by the way, and secondary ticketing and secondary ticketing fees, which is just, you know, a fan and another fan, or a broker and a broker, or a broker and a fan buying and selling tickets. And obviously the team is not even a part of that. And that's where they make most of their money. So you have this like unbelievable, dynamic where it would almost be like if you are Shopify is your platform, or Microsoft is your tech company that you buy or work with. But like 90% of the things that Microsoft is building for you, like they don't make money on it.
Right.
They make money on some other ancillary thing that is like not that important to you. And so all of the focus and attention and engineering and effort goes into the thing that is really not that important. So so that creates like that business model, which was created in the 70s. Fred Rosen, the history of Ticketmaster was the reason for the ascendance like of Ticketmaster was that they added on fees and then shared those fees back with the venue. And that was at a time when it was much more of this just transactional, you're buying a ticket, you're going to the show, you're taking your family, whatever. That was sort of the time. And so that led to this entire industry being highly, highly transactional. And fast forward to 2025, I mean, if you ask anybody who's a sports fan of a team, if they feel like it's just buying a ticket and it's a transaction, they'll probably like roll up their sleeve and show you a tattoo of the New York Giants on their arm or something, right? Like it is. This isn't even close to a relationship. This is like a generational loyalty that's passed down from your grandparents and your parents and your siblings. Like it is built deeply relationship driven. And so that's upside down now. And so you have this entire legacy of solutions, tech that were built around a transaction business. And so our approach at Jump and the big insight was, no, this is a relationship business. And so a relationship business feels much more like buying software or paying for technology and tools that helps me run my business. I don't care if they want to sell a bunch of season plans or if they want to sell single game tickets or they want to do a big groups business or they want to do, first half passes and then those people leave at halftime. Like any innovation, any idea, any product that they want to sell, we shouldn't be incentivized to push them in one direction or another direction. We just want to give them the tools to do the job.
Total. That makes a ton of sense. And even to take a step back, I mean, because one of the things that struck me when we first met, you hear about Ticketmaster being founded in the 1970s, much different market, obviously paper-based ticketing. So like walk us through what is required, like what is the actual product functionality that's been built to like create a ticket, purchase a ticket as a consumer, show up to the event, like who owns that data, just to understand like what is the status quo versus where you think it could go.
Well, that last piece is probably the critical unlock, which is, and again, touches on the business model, but sort of what is the fan data and relationship ownership dynamic? Who owns the fan and who owns the customer? And so again, go back in time to the days of, the early days of ticketing and live events. You had, and Ticketmaster was known to be a ticketing agency. Even today, it's sort of mentioned like, oh yeah, there's a ticketing agency or whatever. And if you really think about and look closely, like what does that mean? Agencies do things on behalf of others. And so people have, into this day, basically hire an agency to sell tickets on their behalf. And so if you want to go to a Knicks game, Ticketmaster is their primary ticketing provider.
Right.
The Knicks have effectively hired this outside agency on Ticketmaster.com, like on the Ticketmaster properties, to handle the selling and the transferring and the account management. Like they've outsourced that to an agency, a ticketing agency. And so, and Ticketmaster's business model is actually then having that customer as a user, a customer for them to then market to sell tickets to other shows. Like that's not Ticketmaster. That's the industry. That's how SeatGeek works. That's how every ticketing company that has some ticket seat stub in their name, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're all ticketing companies that basically try to acquire users for the benefit of then marketing to those users a broad swath of shows and games and concerts. The Knicks fans, though, are Knicks customers.
Yeah.
And I believe, and when we started this company, and I spent enough time with direct-to-consumer businesses at Stella to have this instinct that, oh no, like these are billion-dollar businesses. Like they want their customers to be their customers.
Of course.
Why are they renting? It's like almost a leaseback situation.
Right.
It's like they basically sell out their fans to the ticketing agency, and so the ticketing agencies now own the customer, and then they rent back the fan from the ticketing agency. And so our whole pitch and concept is, yeah, you know what? The Knicks should actually know every tap, every click, every listing that doesn't go, every price change, every single behavior of a Knicks fan should be owned and controlled and analyzed and taken by the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
And they shouldn't have to pay extra for it, or they shouldn't have to wait 3 weeks for it, or they shouldn't have to email somebody for it. And much of that stuff they can't even get even if they wanted to, because it's literally on somebody else's website.
Right.
Versus the Shopify model, which is they're just the underlying technology for Viore. But Viore, every tap, every click, every checkout, every page view, every add-on to cart but didn't buy, every retargeting email, yeah, that's Shopify under the hood, but no one knows that. No one cares.
Yeah.
They're Viore customers.
Right.
And so that's the model. We're trying to do that for sports teams. And,
Arm them with their first-party data, effectively.
and I haven't met a team yet that doesn't, or a league that doesn't believe that that's how the industry should work.
Right.
What does the Jump product look like today? Could you walk us through how you guys are building the Shopify for teams and leagues, specifically not the Amazon? What are the main parts of the product? And then could you talk through some of the first case studies before the Timberwolves that you guys went live with?
Sure. The product is like I said, it's kind of a compound platform. Like compound product means there's a lot of products in one. So of course, we did end up having to build all things ticketing, but if we were going to do that, we took all first principles approach to that. So every single part of the ticketing fan experience, we looked at the best and worst of everyone that's ever done this before, and this is like a very last mover kind of a business on the ticketing side. And so all things primary ticketing, inclusive of things today that are, again, these point solutions. So flex plans or mini plans, or I want to pick these 2 games with these other 4 games, group sales, group ticketing. Again, that's not part of buying a ticket to a game or a show back in the day. So that's another company that does that. Suites and premium, again, that's another company that does that. So that's another part of the platform. The actual mobile app for the teams, we build that for all of our clients. And again, think Shopify. You should have a totally unique and beautiful and built for you look and feel of your site. So, again, just like Shopify, if there's a pet accessories business built on Shopify and Viore, they will look totally different. They will have a completely different vibe and UI and design, and that's what we're doing as well for our clubs. And then all parts of the landing pages, marketing, experiences, messaging through the digital channels of the team. We do still integrate with partners, though, that the team have. We can't build everything. And so we're not building commerce. So if they use Fanatics or if they use Shopify, whoever they use, we'll integrate that. Mobile ordering, food and concessions, same thing. We work with Venue Next or whoever else that they have in their building. But the key is that it all comes through one fan account, one wallet. That's like the key. Just again, to use the Viore example, you don't get kicked out when you want to ship the product to your house to UPS and then finish everything on the UPS website, right? That's how it works today, obviously. And so with Jump, for the Timberwolves, your Timberwolves account, you want to log in to the app, you want to buy your tickets, you want to transfer tickets, you want to resell tickets, you want to do groups, you want to do suites, you want to do whatever it is. It's one account, one wallet. Super, super important. And so then our first customer, our first launch partner, ended up being the North Carolina Courage, and I'm unbelievably grateful. We'll be forever grateful to Steve for taking that chance with us. And they were using Ticketmaster and a collection of other solutions and point solutions. And it was earlier this year. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And it went really well. We had a ton of learnings. That first game, I remember, everyone was really nervous.
I'm sure.
We had never scanned people into a professional sports or large event before. I think there were 8,000 or 9,000 people there, and it went great. There, throughout the year, though, there were things where I was like, oh, that one gate had some issues with scanning, or this one thing had, this fan, this resale thing didn't work, or this transfer thing was an issue, and so we just had a great opportunity in Cary, North Carolina, to test and to pressure test and to look at all the different parts of the platform coming together in one. And by the end of the season, I mean, it was really humming. And we did a survey to all the North Carolina Courage fans at the end of the season through the digital experience. So anyone who went to a match,
Yep.
we sent them a survey. And the simple question was like, was the ticketing and mobile experience better than last year? Like just flat out, like,
Right.
What is this better? And I think the answer, the yes or no, I think it was like 94% or 92% or something.
That's exactly what you want to hear.
And so I was like, all right, well, that was our first ever customer. We didn't even have most of the feature functionality built out yet.
Yep.
We were working through the kinks or whatever. And so, that fast forward to our first launch with the Timberwolves here a couple weeks ago, the Timberwolves went flawlessly. And so we would never have been able to execute like that at an NBA game at an NBA scale without having gone through that with the Courage.
Can you talk about too, because you got some great early data from the Courage, like what were some of the positive impacts that Jump had?
Yeah, I mean, because again, it was just the basics in blocking and tackling this direct-to-consumer model. One easy example is because of that dynamic we talked about before where the clubs actually don't own the relationship with the customer.
Yeah.
Sports teams have never done retargeting, a cart abandonment retargeting, ever.
Right.
That's
Insane.
that's the prerogative and the ownership of Ticketmaster or whatever ticketing company they use. So we, and so people have never done that before.
Which
so
is
we
like
showed
the
up with
lowest
them. We said,
hanging fruit.
yeah. So we said, hey guys, you can do any kind of retargeting you want because of any behavior and any attribute and any click or tap or any action that any fan has taken. I said, oh my God, okay. And so we helped set up for them a cart abandonment like retargeting campaign.
Yeah.
And it's totally personalized. Instead of it saying, the ticketing company at the top, it says North Carolina Courage at the top, and it can be highly, customized and personalized to every fan and super high conversion rates. And we were just like, this is just the lowest hanging fruit.
Right.
Revenue
Found
you
money
can get.
effectively. Yeah.
Another one was prorated season plans. So once the season starts, most pro sports teams want to continue to try to fill up their fixed plans, their season plans, their half season plans. But there's this really archaic way of doing it. You do this big push at the beginning of the year, try to sell everybody as much as you can on the season plans. Then the season starts, and then you just start like cranking through singles and like try to sell like 5-game plans and stuff. And we were like, why not just sell the prorated season plans all the way throughout the whole season and merchandise that only to the fans who are the right people to see that at the right time. So who would that be? Well, that would be probably someone who bought a single game ticket, went to the first game, and then was maybe clicking around the site to buy tickets for a third game or a fourth game, but didn't have a plan or whatever. And so the second they pulled up their app, only those people would see this offer that could be like some special timed, buy now or whatever, like prorated for and it was up, I think, like 3x from what they did the prior year. Just basic. There's no like real magic to that. That's just the playbook of 20 years ago in direct to consumer commerce. And so with the Wolves, we're obviously getting way more sophisticated and we're starting to use AI in a lot of things. And so, but even just the early days with the Courage, attendance were up, sales were up. The team had a really difficult year on the pitch. And usually when revenue is up and attendance is up, you usually say, oh, well, it's because you don't get any credit for that because the team had a great year.
Yeah.
The team had a very down year and they were the single shining example of attendance and revenue like really going up this year. And Steve, the owner, attributes that to Joe.
That's an amazing case study. Yeah. And by the way, you started talking about this and we wanted to ask about it. You're using AI with the Timberwolves now. You talk about like what you're doing now or even in the near term.
Yeah.
And then also like grand vision, what can that look like? Because you talk a lot about being the AI operating system for live entertainment venues.
Sure. There's a few different layers to the AI, revolution in our world. So let's just kind of divide it up equally into, you have the B2B and enterprise sort of agentic and traditional AI and ML experiences for B2B users. And then you have the fan experience, the customer experience. So on the B2B side, this industry is so incredibly ripe for consolidating and accelerating workflows and doing things that they just can't do today because of the manual work to do it. There's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of fans who go to a game in a given year and all of their attributes and all their proclivities and interests and who their favorite players are and what they buy and if they have kids or if they go, all these things, they should all be targeted in different ways. And so if you have an idea for, Star Wars night or family night or Hispanic Heritage night or whatever you want to do, there's like 3 or 4 teams of people at these clubs that all have to sort of figure out the configuration, figure out the workflows, price and package, and then set up the marketing. We're building this year this like collection of agents that then all work together as if they are the teams working together, where someone just says and prompts, the LLM inside the platform, I'd like to run, a Star Wars theme night next week at the Bucks game. And, I'd like to do this kind of tickets or this kind of pricing and, any other sort of, guardrails, enter. And then, the configuration agent is configuring inventory. The pricing agent is pricing the inventory. The marketing agent is starting to spin up the marketing content and the copy. The PR and the communications agent is starting to write the copy. And then, you connect it to the marketing platform. It sends out the campaigns to the right fans and the cohorts and which users should be seeing it. And then it's A/B testing it. And it's redoing and regenerating new kinds of campaigns for that exact theme night. It's based on supply and demand, maybe changing pricing, and getting more aggressive or less aggressive. And that would be one person who's like a marketing person who had an idea for theme night instead of 3 weeks and 20 people.
Right.
So it sounds like the vision is for Jump to become the AI operating system for these teams.
That's it.
We want to close out, but want to mention a couple things first. First is the one pilot you didn't mention is Bucknell. I wanted to bring it up because A-Rod goes to a game and shoots at halftime, he shoots a half-court shot and he makes it, and he gets mobbed. Yeah. Was that part of the plan?
Yeah. We planned it so that he would make a half-court shot and get. It was on Good Morning America the next day. So again, when things went sideways with Marc and Alex trying to buy the Timberwolves, we had to figure out, as entrepreneurs, like, we cannot be stopped. We have to figure out a way to get this product out the door. And our, if we stick to the rocket, theme here, like, the rocket is built. We're on the launch pad, but like the launch pad is broken. We can't launch it with Wolves. And so we had to find another launch pad. And so, Marc and I both went to Bucknell. John, my partner, went to Bucknell. We had a lot of Bucknell themes here. And so I called up, the president of Bucknell and I said, hey, I have a crazy idea. Can we test this with the basketball program? And, this is just, you'll get this NBA kind of level technology, which is way overkill for Bucknell. We'll get a place to learn. And we'll fly everybody to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We'll give this a shot. And I said, the cherry on top is I promise I will do every single thing in my power to bring Marc and Alex out here for a game. And then when the athletic director heard that, he was like, oh yeah, we're doing this. We're 100% we're doing this.
Right.
I was like, okay. And then I spent a few weeks, maybe more than that, trying to talk to Alex and Marc about like, okay, come on, we got to find a game. Can we do this game? And it turned out to be the very, very last game of the season. It was in February, I think. And we had this campaign going all season where students would actually shoot half-court shots. And if the students played a game of knockout and then they do a half-court shot, they'd win like $500 or whatever. And then, we were like, okay, we got Marc and Alex here. Let's like up the ante a little bit. And so I just told those guys, and they didn't even, they probably didn't remember, but I was sitting there with them like right before halftime, and I'm like, all right, guys, get ready. Like,
you're like, you need to make the shot.
No, I'm like, no,
get dialed in.
No, I was just like, we can't embarrass ourselves out there. And I forget I'm talking to like one of the greatest athletes in the history of humanity.
Not embarrassing himself.
And then all of a sudden I looked at Marc. I was like, where did Alex go? Like, he was just gone. It was like 2 minutes left until halftime. And I was like, where did he go? And then all of a sudden I looked at my shoulder and he's running out of the tunnel with a Bucknell like t-shirt on, an orange shirt that says like Bucknell or Go Bison.
Seize the moment.
I was just like, oh, this guy is amazing. And so then, sure enough, we go out there, I airball, a few shots. Marc makes a couple, but, then in terms of, we did these 3-pointers and then it was the half-court shot.
Yeah.
Whoever made the most 3-pointers gets the half-court shot. And so Alex made the most 3-pointers, no surprise. And then he just goes out there ice cold. I mean, they didn't even know they were doing this, And And then, he drains it and then just goes absolutely nuts running around the court. And then that kid, Owen, the kid, and we were attached to a student. And that was the whole campaign was like, whoever makes if you make the half court shot, you win $10,000 for a student.
Come on.
And so this kid, Owen, just goes and jumps on Alex. And then we were just talking to him afterward. And he goes, Alex was like, what are you gonna do with the money? And he was like, I'm going to help my parents cover my tuition. It's so expensive to go to school here. And Alex, just without skipping a beat, the game was on TV. It was on like a local CBS affiliate. He calls over like the TV cameras and he's like, turn it on. It's just his instincts were like, I got to tell this story. This kid's unbelievable. Yeah. And he just sits there and he interviews Owen. He's like, Owen, like, what's, tell us where you're from. What's, who's your favorite baseball team? He's like, Phillies. He's like, well, nobody's perfect,
We'll edit that out.
Yeah. And then he goes, so what are you going to do with the $10,000? And the kid, he's just, Owen was so great. He talked about how he was going to help his parents. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So it was a really fun experience. And Bucknell and we're still working with Bucknell. We're still powering.
That's awesome.
It's so cool. Like, it's also just like to see how creative you guys, starting a company is so hard. It's never a linear path. And you guys, you alluded to like the ownership dispute and some of these things that you dealt with early on. It's a big challenge. And you figured out how to crawl, walk, and run, right? Which we really admire. And so it brings us to something we want to close out on, which is sort of life lessons, things that you've taken away. I want to talk about Doug Lebda, who was a mentor of yours. And he passed away this October. And you wrote about him on LinkedIn. How, he was the CEO and founder of Lending Tree. He invested in your business. He joined your board. He was mentoring you daily. Like, he had this big impact. Felt like he almost became like a kind of a driving force, both personally and professionally for you. And so what we wanted to ask was, if there was one lesson that Doug taught you that you can impart on folks listening to this, what would it be?
Yeah, and Doug, Doug's from Lewisburg, went to Bucknell. He and Marc together were sort of my, sort of always been my mentors. Doug, he taught me so much from day one. God, if there was one thing, the thing that comes to mind for me that I always try to remember when you're building a company is the first day, theoretically, as a founder, like, you do everything. And so this whole idea of delegation and like it's all horseshit because you're doing everything. You're literally running payroll, you're setting up the website, you're buying the domain, you're sending the emails, like, you literally do everything. And so the challenge of scaling from like founder to, and Doug was CEO of a public company for 20 years. He always talked about, only doing the things that only you can do. Yeah. And that is a constant evolution as a founder. It's really hard to do when you do everything. And then, sure, you're definitely not the best in the world at writing emails, and you're not the best of the world at product development. You're not the best of the world of engineering. You're not the best of the world at anything. You need to hire people who are the best people you can possibly get at each of those things. And then you have to switch on this, like, well, are you the only person who can do that? And so only doing the things only you can do means that your job as founder, CEO constantly is changing because you no longer are only the only person who can and should be doing that. And so that, we always just talked a lot about, there's a lot of great people who can go 0 to 1, and there's a lot of people who can run big divisions of thousands of people. It's really, really, really hard to be the founder of a company and be the CEO of that same company when it's a publicly traded company. And so I've always that's been, just an amazing thought and dream of mine some days to take a business where, like, the first day you're the only person, and then there's this great, big, amazing business that's doing all these great things, and you've figured out how to scale yourself and your workflow and your delegation, and change it. Toby at Shopify, or obviously any of the great
business for sure.
Yeah, Chesky, like any of the great founder CEOs of our time. I look to them and I'm like, man, that you can probably count them on one hand.
Totally. So. Takes a lot of self-awareness, takes a lot of introspection to be able to do that. So that's awesome advice from Doug. He sounds like an amazing person. Jordy, we're so fortunate to be partnered with you. Really appreciate you joining us
I'm
today.
grateful for you guys. You guys have been amazing.
That's that honor and a privilege, brother. Thanks for joining us, man. Looking forward to the year ahead.
Thanks, Jordy.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks again to Jordy for joining us today.
You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and socials.
So keep an eye out for more episodes from Will Ventures. We've got a great lineup of leaders from the sports and entertainment industry.